Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski with the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
Doing great. Happy holidays. How are you, Eric?
Happy holidays. We are wrapping up the year. This is our last Success Showcase of 2020. And as I said on our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, 2020 offered a mixed bag. It was a horrible year, but Lord knows it gave us a lot to talk about.
It sure did. And obviously there's a lot for us to look forward to moving ahead into 2021.
There certainly is. So we've got a special guest here today. We have Deb and I apologize if I get the pronunciation of your last name wrong. Krawiec. Is that
it's pretty darn close there, Eric? It's Krawiec. It's a tough one to pronounce, no doubt.
Deb is from Arrow Career Consulting, so welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I feel like it's very special. It's your last show of 2020, so thank you. Thank you so much for this invitation.
It's great having you. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, about Arrow Career?
Certainly. Well, as you had announced to the listeners, Arrow Career Consulting is my own private practice. I launched this service 5 years ago. I have a long career in the outplacement field. I've spent 20 years helping individuals successfully transition into their next career or job opportunity. And after leaving my corporate position for a major player in the industry called Lehigh Harrison, I launched my own practice where I continue to serve people in this capacity.
Fantastic. Now, again, we started talking about 2020. So how has all of the events of 2020 changed what job seekers are going through?
That's a terrific question. There is no doubt that there has been a bit of a shift for the job seeker. First and foremost, we've all had to learn how to work virtually. So in addition to those that are employed learning to shift to creating an office environment within their home, the job seeker now also has to shift to searching online and preparing themselves in their home for online interviewing. In addition to that, they need to be prepared to answer the question, how are they set up within their homes? How have they set up their boundaries within their home so that workspace can truly be provided for when and if they get their next work opportunity?
Yeah, I imagine there's been a major shift in how recruiters do their jobs also, because rather than scheduling appointments or having people come into the office and things like that, I'm sure that using Zoom has changed a lot of that, and I'm wondering if it gives them maybe a greater capacity to see more people because there's not a lot of travel involved. It's a lot more convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many forms of technology out there where the recruiters are now tapping into so that they could provide those interviews for the candidates where they can sit within the comfort of their home, answer those self-interview questions. So Zoom is certainly one of them, WebEx, Teams. So there are a lot of different forms of technology out there. So the candidate has had to learn how to prep for the camera. We talk a lot, or I speak a lot to my clients about how to look in front of the camera, where to look, how to position yourself, how to place your material in front of you when answering the questions, how to gauge and pace yourself when answering the questions. So there's a lot to how to manage a Zoom. We'll use that word generically, or we'll call it an online interview. There is a lot to manage for the candidate, in addition to preparing themselves to answer the questions accordingly.
Yes, and it's very important that candidates realize that even though the interview is virtual, it still needs to be professional. I'm on the board of directors of the Connecticut Humane Society, and we did some interviewing, and one of the job applicants actually did the virtual interview in her pajamas.
Oh dear.
Needless to say, she was not hired.
Oh yeah. This is we have a lot of fun talking about what to do and what not to do. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite training programs has to deal with how to prep the candidate, and certainly topics such as putting on your full suit. And I tell candidates to put full suit on top to bottom, including your shoes, And I equate that to when we dress up to go out at night. Ladies buy their fancy shoes, maybe men shine up their shoes, right? Those shoes that it adds that feeling. And so when you put your interview shoes on or your office shoes on, again, even though you're sitting in your home, smiling at the camera, right, and answering those interview questions, it puts you in a frame of mind. So always, always be dressed head to toe in regards to the proper interview attire. Absolutely, absolutely. We never want a candidate to have to stand up unexpectedly and find out they've got their pajama bottoms on. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something about getting dressed properly that changes your mindset. It's a less casual mindset. You're professional, and it's important to project that even virtually.
There are also other elements when preparing the candidate. The lighting. We have to make sure that we inform our candidates that the lighting has to be in front of us. Certainly, if one has the money, they could purchase the professional lighting necessary. However, you can't create within your home proper lighting. So I always encourage clients, and what I've done with my clients is have a mock interview so that we could prepare and play with the lighting, play with how they're looking at the camera, play with how they're projecting their voice forward. You also want to be mindful of what's in back of you, what type of what's your environment look like? We want to keep it very simple. In the beginning, a lot of us were informing our candidates to get one of those makeshift backgrounds. And so candidates would be interviewing, they'd have New York City in back of them, or they'd have Cape Cod or a mountain view. And what we were finding from a lot of our recruiters, that the recruiters really weren't favoring that all that much. What they want to see is they don't mind seeing a little bit of the candidate, but a little bit meaning a little bit of a proper background, maybe a nice lamp and a table and a nice sofa. So to position yourself in your home where you have a simple but yet natural background, home background. We all know that you're working from your home. Another tidbit is to make sure that you shut your phone off so that, again, you're not disturbed in the middle of an interview, so that when you're getting interviewed, and of course, if you have animals, to try to keep them at bay. I've seen a lot of cats like to become, I don't know what it is with cats in Zoom, but I've seen a lot of cats parading around. They love being on camera, right? And the dog always wants him to get the bone right about that time, right? Or somebody comes to the door. So to be mindful. But then again, I'm also going to say is that there is some leeway given. Everybody knows we're working from our home. So as much as we try to prep our candidates, we also give a little leeway that some of these things do happen. Your animal might stroll in, the dog starts barking. And I always tell my clients that it's how we respond. So we want to be natural. We want to excuse ourselves, attend to what matter might be, and then come back and continue to forge forward with the interview.
Yeah, it really is a different environment not going into an office to do an interview, and you do have to be able to adapt.
Yes, you do. And that is one of the core competencies you needed that employers are looking for, right? Adaptability. How resilient are we? How flexible are we, right? And to be also ready to answer the question on the interview, how are you managing your time during this time of COVID, right? And certainly what I tell my clients is that you want to also, if eventually you are called in for that final interview to be in person, which my clients do, they might have one or two preliminary interviews that are virtual. But when the recruiter is actually close to finalizing their decision, my clients have gone in to interview in person, we always want to ask the employer, and the employer is more than likely prepared to respond on how they've provided a safe environment for that person to walk into for that interview.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking, obviously, comfort is a huge level. I would imagine a lot of candidates are more comfortable using the virtual meeting rather than meeting in person with people, but you still get nervous in certain ways. So, I mean, how do you coach people in calming down? And I mean, I think being prepared is one of the big things. And when we're talking in networking, one of the toughest things to do if you're a brand new networker is to be open and get people talking. And the easiest way to do that is to start asking questions of the other person, introducing yourself. And so I've never coached people looking for jobs and so on and so forth, but I say as far as getting prepared, it's really, really important to go to the website of the company that you're interviewing with, see what's going on, go to their news page and their blog and so on and so forth, and pick out a couple of topics that you can just bring up to the person saying, hey, congratulations on this, or I heard you have this going on and so on and so forth, to show that you care more about what the situation is than just getting an interview for a job. So I imagine that's very important these days too.
Yeah, Chip, I would absolutely say that process actually for my clients starts even as the candidate might see a job in the newspaper. You're touching on two different elements there, networking and also applying to a position. So for me, when one of my clients see a job posting online, for me, I encourage them to start researching out the company right then and there. In their cover letter, which is is optional in this day and age, you may want to include a sentence or two specific to the ongoings of that organization of interest to you. Make it personal. Make it again, to your point, it's not all about me, but it's that there's a job there for me. But what is it about your company that excites me? And then, of course, for the interview, now we've done our homework even more so, and have read about what's happening, how they're growing. I think you were alluding to maybe what measures they're taking to keep their staff safe should their employees be part of a team that's required to come in. So just have some general knowledge. Of course, always research out on LinkedIn who you're interviewing with. Of course, you'll have the names of the individuals, so go on LinkedIn, do a little homework, find out about the people, their history, where they came from, so see if there's any natural connection. Not because you're going to necessarily bring it up on an interview, but just to give a feel for the organization and the people's background, to see again where there might be some type of mutual connection. In regards to the networking that you alluded to, of course, for the networking, that's a whole separate piece, right? And nowadays we're not having cups of coffee with folks, right? So we have to do that all online and through conversations such as this, or again using technology such as Zoom to have those quick conversations, and that's just exploring possibilities and options. So yes, the pandemic has shifted many aspects of job search. However, the strategies remain the same. It's the manner in which we roll out the strategies.
We've been talking a lot about the changes in interviews and what the candidate has to do to prepare for an interview, but let's take a step back. There are an awful lot of people right now who are out of work. Unemployment rates have been rising. How does somebody get the recruiter's attention in the first place to convince them that they're worthy of having an interview?
Sure. So that there's several aspects to do that. So again, one of my training seminars, I talk about, again, we have another shift in our world of work, yet another evolution, right? For those of us that have been around, we've seen the highs and lows in the economy, and this time now, first time for many of us due to a pandemic. Last time it was 9/11. So some of the elements that we want to incorporate in getting a recruiter's attention would first and foremost, of course, writing an effective cover letter, connecting the dots. Okay, so connecting the dots with the employer as to why you. And again, I state that it is optional because 50% of the recruiters in HR will read it, 50% of them will not. But those that do read a cover letter, it is still very important to them. And of course, having an effective resume that's accomplishment based. But there's something here actually even beyond that. And what we're really talking about is that hidden job market. And I think that's what you're really alluding to, Eric, is how do I get the recruiter's attention when I'm competing right out there?
Yep.
For right. So I call it how do I get out of the black hole, that black hole being the online. So that's really networking. I am a firm believer in networking, effective networking. And so I always encourage my clients to make a target list of companies they're interested in and conduct what I call a reverse search on LinkedIn. So I'm not looking at necessarily all places that are hiring. I'm doing that because I'm answering the ads, of course, right? I'm encouraging my clients to answering the ads. But when they're not answering the ads, I have them spending time on a reverse search, meaning they create a list of companies and they're going into an instrument such as LinkedIn, or they might be a part of job clubs, and they're announcing the companies they're interested in. Now I'm meeting folks in those companies, right? And I'm setting up what we call an exploratory conversation, and I start creating a buzz around my name. And it's like the pebble in the pond. You keep doing this enough, right? That buzz, that ripples right to a decision maker or a recruiter, right? And so then your paper now, because you're out there, right? You get more visibility because people are talking about you're penetrating an account. If anyone's ever been in sales, right? You've got your A accounts, your B accounts, right? So you want to work these companies like as if you were working a sales account. And so I call that a reverse search. And the statistic still has been, although I think it's increased a little bit, we used to say 80% of jobs are gained through networking. I think the statistic recently went up to 85%. It's really getting visibility by through networking.
Yeah, and as you're saying, it's so important to do your homework up front so you can identify what's going on, because getting a buzz around your name without having any targets out there is not going to do you any good either. But the networking is so important because it's very simply the process of developing win-win relationships, and people like to deal with people they know, like, and trust. So if somebody makes a phone call for you to a recruiter saying, hey, you got to see Deb for the interview with this person just to get to know them, it goes a long distance. And obviously now I'm sure there's still a whole bunch of papers and letters and so on and so forth on desk, but more and more these days, this is an easy way to do that. And rather than get people in physically and so on and so forth, it's very easy to set things up using Zoom. So really, really important to leverage your network. And we do it for business, but it's for jobs, it's for buying that new car or anything else. You want to talk to somebody you know, like, and trust, and have somebody refer you to somebody else. And if you get referred to a recruiter that way, it does you a world of good, I'm sure.
Absolutely, Chip. Absolutely. Think back to networking is on the one hand, such an easy concept, but on the other hand, for many folks, it's perceived to be such a difficult concept. Yet if I were to say to the two of you, can either one of you recommend to me a good mechanic, right, or a good Chinese restaurant, right? I bet the two of you could start giving me some names and telling me how wonderful your experience was, right? And because you're excited and you look like you enjoyed the food, and maybe I have a relationship with you, right? Guess what? I'm probably gonna go to your mechanic, or I'm gonna go to that Chinese restaurant, and maybe you might even say, "Hey, tell the mechanic I sent you," right? That's a referral, right? And so again, people are your greatest resource. So that's networking, by the way. That is networking, right? Networking is when we're making those referrals. So when a recruiter has a job opening, even in tough times, even in times such as this, and there is hiring that does occur, it is obviously we're dealing with high unemployment and we're in the middle of a pandemic, so a lot of unknowns, but there is some hiring occurring. So even during these times, and even more so during these times, to create that buzz, because the recruiter has the opening, the company needs the talent. And if I've got 50 resumes to go through from online, but somebody like a Chip or Eric comes to me and say, I'm the recruiter, and you refer somebody, guess what? I'm probably going to take a look-see at their paper. I'm not going to say I'm going to guarantee to hire them, but they're certainly going to rise to the top of my pile. Or in some cases, they'll even get in my pile where they may not have gotten in my pile.
Yeah, it's got to make the job easier for the recruiter, because if he has somebody in there, the likelihood of which, because it was referred to him by somebody he trusts, the likelihood of this person not being a good candidate is a lot less. So I'd imagine the more referrals recruiters work off of, the less work they have to do screening out people who are never going to make it there anyway. So
you got it. Because remember, now we're using the word recruiter, and I'm in my mind thinking external recruiter, and the audience might be thinking of that as well. Sometimes we call those folks headhunters or right search firms, right? But the word recruiter. But let's not forget, there's also the word recruiter within the HR department, right? So again, anytime we can help an external, I bring that up because both if it's an internal or external recruiter, if they have a need and the company is in need of talent, believe me, you refer talent, you're taking care of their problem, right? Because they're going to get good people into their organization. If it's an external recruiter, they get a little bonus because an external recruiter gets paid on a good placement. And the reputation depends on making a good placement. So again, a little just to differentiate for the listeners, a recruiter, internal or external, the bottom line is if you refer talent to them and they have an opening, they're grateful and they'll take a look at that candidate, especially if it's coming from a credible source.
Absolutely. And something for our listeners to keep in mind is that the best time to build your network is before you need it. I get calls from recruiters all the time simply because they know I've got an extensive network. They, do you have anybody that might be interested in such and such a position? Well, if I've known you for a while, you're going to come up, in my mind going, yes, let me connect you with, this person. If you're first looking for a job and I don't know you when that recruiter contacts me, then I'm not going to know to make that connection. So you need to build your networks ahead of time before you're looking for a job, before you're looking to sell in your business. Build that network. And, if you haven't done it already, the best time is now.
You're so right, Eric. Absolutely. And when we think of the word network, a net that works for you, a net that works for you. And I say the word net because it's a safety net. So when we're working, sometimes we're so busy that we forget to stay in touch with. If any of the listeners have been out of work, we know that we've been out there, we're networking, and then you get your new job, and then what happens is transition comes, and then you say, oh my gosh, I wish I stayed in touch with, I had all these people that I used to know, right? Well, guess what? It happens. It happens. So what we want to say to the listeners today is that if you're out there and you're building that network and you land that next job, right, we're going to continue to keep that safety net, right, working for us, right? And so we're going to maintain contact with them and extend ourselves to say hello or maybe help somebody else, right? And keep it alive. Keep it alive, because we all know the world of work is temporary. And so that network, again, it's a safety net that's going to work for us and carry us through all our job transitions.
Exactly. And that's something also to keep in mind. I remember there was a time when you got a job and you stayed at that job forever until you retired. And now the average job span, I heard 3 years, and then I heard it's actually dropping to 18 months. People change jobs every 18 months to 2 years. So if you're going to be doing that, you certainly need to have an active network, because you need people to be out there who know you, who trust you, before they can refer you.
and vice versa for others, and we can do it for somebody else. When I started in this business over 20 years ago, my average person was in the organization. They were exiting, they were 30, 40 years within the company that they stayed. So a lot of my clients, 30, 40 years, that was the average stay in the 90s. Now the average stay is exactly that. It's about 4 years, it's about 6 years, and I don't doubt that it's dropping. I don't doubt that it's dropping to 3 to 2 years. So, yes, the world of work is temporary, there's no doubt. And we need to embrace, be prepared, and know the nuances of how to effectively network. That's right.
Yeah, you mentioned do's and don'ts earlier. I'm sure that it's that you emphasize this to everybody that you're working with, but talk a little bit about the importance of having a good online image in your social media accounts and everywhere else, because if there's something out there that's not good for you, no matter how good you are, that could really clobber you.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this. When my clientele is early to mid-career, so I talk a lot with my clients that are starting off in their career, maybe 5 years, 4 years, and then of course I work as an adjunct as well, and I share this with my students when I teach them, that your online image and cleaning up your online image or having sensitivity to your online image starts very early, right, in those college years, and it takes you throughout your professional years. So certainly we want to teach sensitivity when we're young to that, and then as we continue on, we want to make sure that when I look at online, I think about branding. We want to think about what message do we want to send when everybody clicks onto our social media sites, right? So you want to be professional. You want to make sure that you have pictures that if your friends are posting that they run by you first, right? You want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date and that you are truly expressing your skills and competencies. So when I think about that, I think about my college students that I teach. I think about my early my clients that are in the early part of their career, and sometimes I have to remind my mid-career clients, not so much, but it all matters. It all threads together. It all threads together. So the best we can do is just to teach sensitivity to it, and just know that nothing's a secret out there in this day and age. And just be mindful of people uploading pictures of you, or you posing for a picture, as we would say.
All right, we're coming up on the end of our time. So if there are job seekers or recruiters out there that would like to get a hold of you, how can they best do that?
Well, let me welcome everybody to refer to my website. It's arrowcareerconsulting.com. And certainly I can provide you my business line as well, if appropriate, 860-558-0114. And I respond to incoming calls. Just announce that you've heard this radio show and you would like to chat about your job search. I do offer a 15-minute complimentary review of your job search efforts. And if I can be of help, we can talk further after the initial consultation. And certainly my website also provides an overview of my work background and the services that I provide.
Fantastic. Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Well, first of all, I would definitely get that complimentary review, because searching for a job is not an easy process, but there's a few things that you really, really need to know. Obviously, the research part of it, doing your homework, the professional image that we talked about. But to me, the most important part is developing your network. And if you do all your homework and are able to project what you're looking for, chances are you're going to know somebody who knows somebody that might be able to get you in the door for an interview. So, but start with that complimentary review.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big takeaway is you need to keep up on what's going on in the job market, build that network, keep up with companies that you're interested in joining, and keep your skills refreshed as well. Skills change fairly frequently. You need to show that you're the right person for that job. Deb, thank you so much for being here this week.
It's been my pleasure, and happy holidays to everybody and the best for the new year.
Same to you.
You.
You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. And now you can have the podcasts delivered right to your inbox by going to xvadio.com/subscribe. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. And we will see you in 2021. Have a fantastic holiday.